Hi, I'm Madison Mary. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have full book recommendations. So I have a couple books on this list that kind of give me like full vibes, full aesthetics. They're not necessarily like spooky books or anything. I only have 2 thrillers on this list, but these are books that kind of make you think of autumn and like the changing seasons and things like that. So I'm very excited to get into these. I hope you guys enjoy these recommendations, and yeah, let's get into it. So I'm gonna start this off with a witchy recommendation. This is an adult polyamorous fae witch romance. Oh my god, I can't even. And it is set during like the fall time as well, so perfection. This is A Cursed Nash by Julie Zantopolous. I freaking loved it because hello, polyamorous fae witch romance, yes. So this is kind of urban because it's set in our world, but obviously you then have the veil that then goes into the fae realm, so it's a little bit of both. But you're following Ash, and she works for SPD, the Supernatural Police Department. She's an extremely powerful witch, and she deals with supernatural cases, and she also deals with whenever fae illegally come through the veil into the human realm. And so she really loves her job. She loves what she does. Her life is a little bit complicated. She is currently betrothed to a dark fae prince from the Unseelie court. And then we have Raiden, and he comes from a family of Ravdi, and these are humans who are able to see magic, and they basically act as human conduits to their bondmate, who is like a witch that they are partnered with through fate. And what is happening is that Raiden's parents were murdered a year ago, so he ends up fleeing Britain and coming to America to escape that fate. However, when he gets there, he ends up meeting Ash, and when they touch, they find that they actually are bondmates, that Raiden is actually her Ravdi, and that he is her human conduit to her being a witch. And that suddenly complicates everything because now Ash is torn between 2 men. She's torn between Raiden, who is her bondmate, who is her, human partner, and then also Brynark, who is her fae fiance. And then the next thing you know, there is suddenly this magical illness going around that is putting people into an eternal sleep, and it seems like Ash might be at the center of it. And so this one is so much fun because it sounds like she's going to be in a love triangle, but she's not. She gets to be with both men. And oh my freaking god, if that is not amazing, I don't know what is. The atmosphere of this book is so beautiful. You have bits and pieces that are set, in the human world, and then a couple scenes that are also set in the fae world. Both of them are so beautiful and atmospheric. It definitely has like that full vibe to it with it being witchy and fae, but I freaking adored it. If you're looking for a brand new fantasy romance, you need to pick this one up. We then have a thriller, and that is All These Beautiful Strangers by Elizabeth Klehfoth. So you're following Charlie, and she goes to ♂Prep, and at ♂ Prep there is this group of people known as the A's who rule the school, and no one knows who they are. No one really is able to infiltrate them, and the only way to join the A's is by being an exceptional student and being tapped by them to be chosen. And what ends up happening is Charlie ends up being tapped by the A's to join their society, but in order to join at first, she must complete a bunch of different tasks for them, and each one kind of gets more and more sinister. Pair this with the fact that when Charlie was a child, her mother disappeared and there was never any trace, and no one was ever able to find out what happened to her, and Charlie has a lot going on that she is dealing with. I love this. It was so atmospheric. It takes place present day and in the past as you're trying to figure out what happened to Charlie's mum and how Charlie's mother's past links to Charlie's present and everything that's going on for her with the A's, and Charlie trying to figure out, okay, maybe I can use the A's to help me find out what happened to my mum. The way that everything in this book came together was phenomenal. I was so shocked by the way that this was written, and it really took me by surprise because I went into it thinking it was just going to be an average kind of mystery, but it ended up being so much more than that. I became so invested. It's one of my favorites of all time. I never see anyone ever talking about it, and it is super full and atmospheric because it's set, during that first semester of school. It's set, kind of in the forest lake area. I feel like lakes, yes, lakes can be summer vibes, but I feel like there's also a lake vibe when it comes to autumn and fall, the very beginning of it, kind of spending it as the seasons are changing. So highly recommend this one, but I don't recommend the audiobook because the woman who narrates her mum has a really awful voice. My next thriller is going to be Sadie by Courtney. This is just a staple thriller when it comes to the autumnal months. We follow Sadie. Her younger sister Mattie was abducted, raped, and murdered, and Sadie believes that she knows who the culprit is, so she ends up running away from home in order to enact her revenge. And then you have a separate storyline following Wes McCrae, and he is a true crime podcaster. And when he ends up hearing about Sadie's story, Sadie's disappearance and her linking to her little sister's death, he decides to find out what happened to Sadie, how Sadie disappeared. And it's really awesome because you're following Sadie's POV as she's doing these things, and then you then flash to Wes McCrae a couple weeks later as he's trailing Sadie's path and figuring out like what she's leaving in her wake at the end. Definitely listen to this on audiobook. It is a full cast. It's such a huge experience. This was the first audiobook I ever listened to, and it is the reason why I now listen to audiobooks. Like, my life would have been so much more different had I never picked this book up, and I'm so grateful for it. So it's just a staple for these months. We then have like my foresty kind of books. The first one is going to be Avery Had by Seanan McGuire. This is teeny tiny, but it packs a punch and a half. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. So this is adult. It sounds like it's going to be childish, but it is adult. So this is set at Eleanor West's house for wayward children. And Eleanor takes in these children who have been to other worlds. So think of Alice in Wonderland. Alice was going about her day, falls into the rabbit hole and ends up in a different world and is there for forever. And then she comes back. What happens to those children who come back from those portal worlds? What happens to those children who spend all this time being somewhere else and then are brought back to reality? How do they cope with it? They don't cope with it well, which is what Eleanor West's home is for. This is a home for those children who have gone through those experiences and them being unable to reacclimate to society. And no one really believes these children when they say they went to this world, but Eleanor was one of those children, and the reason why she made this place is to help them come back to everything. And so we are following all the children at this place and kind of their past and their stories, and also murders that are going on. This is very dark, very deep. I am in love with this series. It'll take you by surprise. Please pick it up. Then we have Into the Heartless Wood by Joanna Ruth Meyer. I read this year and it was really amazing. If you're a fan of Strange the Dreamer, you're definitely gonna love this one. It is a gender-bent Beauty and the Beast, but imagine that instead of her being a beast, she's actually a tree siren. What? I know, strange. The story is that, yes, we had the tree siren. She is the daughter basically of this witch, and the witch is at war with the king, and the guy we are following, he is the stargazer, the astrologist for the king. So they're both on opposite sides of this war that is going on, and so it's kind of like star-crossed lovers as well. And what's really awesome about this is the fact that the tree siren, her POV is kind of written in verse because she's not human. She doesn't think or speak the same way that humans do. She doesn't understand human emotions or anything like that. And so it's really awesome the way that she kind of processes everything. And as you watch over the course of this book, as she kind of like develops like these human instincts and kind of transforms from being like a monster to being more human. And it's like, it was just really unique. I've never read anything like this before, and it definitely has those fall autumnal vibes with like the whole like forest wood setting to it. So definitely recommend this one. Then we have a romance that I want to recommend, and that is going to be Come Back For Me by Corinne Michaels. This is so phenomenal, but I do want to say that there are some trigger warnings in this. The reason why this book gives me autumn fall vibes is because it is a small town romance, and there's something about small town romances that just like screams autumn to me. It screams fall. I freaking love them to death. So you're following Connor and Ellie. Connor is one of the 4 Arrowwood brothers. This entire series follows each of the brothers. Connor has just been honorably discharged from the Navy. He had a knee injury and can no longer work. And when he gets off the plane back to the United States, he ends up learning that his father has just passed away. And now Connor does not have a great relationship with his father. None of the Arrowwood brothers do. Their father was a drunk and very physically abusive to them, and so they all vowed never to go back to their small town. However, with their father dead, they have to go back for the will. And when they go back there, they end up learning that their father put in the will a new stipulation that in order for them to inherit the farm, in order for them to be able to sell the farm that their dad owned, that they grew up on, they must each spend 6 months living on the farm before they're allowed to inherit it. And so Connor ends up being the first brother who spends 6 months on the farm. And while he is there, he ends up meeting the woman who lives next door, and this is Ellie. And Ellie, it turns out, is a woman he had a one-night stand with 7 years ago. And he has been like infatuated with her ever since then. Like while he was at war, she was the woman, her, like the memory of her, like got him through everything. And then you have Ellie, and she is currently in an abusive marriage. After their night together 7 years ago, she got married the next day to a man that she wasn't confident in marrying, and then he ended up being extremely abusive towards her. And so she has a younger daughter, and she's like, I need to get out of this abusive marriage before my husband kills us both. And what ends up happening in the very beginning of this book is that she ends up leaving him. She ends up filing for divorce and putting in like a whole police thing after he almost kills her. And then Connor comes to her rescue, and he's the one who kind of like helps her heal. And I just love this romance because it is extremely slow burn. They're both in love with one another from the beginning. They had that one night stand 7 years ago, and they have never forgotten about the other person. And they are still so completely enamored of one another, but they have have such traumas in their past that they feel like that they're unable to love. They're so afraid to let love in. And Connor throughout this entire book is so understanding of Ellie. The whole time he's like, I am here for you. I'm here to let you know that you have a safe space with me. Like, you don't have to do anything, you can just sit there, but I want you to know that you are safe here, that you have a place you can come to, and I will listen. No matter what you want to say, I'm here to listen to you, and I'm here to make you comfortable. And I loved that for them. It was such a beautiful romance. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. Then we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is like the ultimate dark academia full book, in my opinion. I freaking love this book. I know not everyone does, but it is my favorite Leigh Bardugo, which shocks a lot of people. So in this book, we're following Alex Stern, and she is the sole survivor of a horrific homicide that is unsolved. And when she wakes up in the hospital from this, there is a man there, and he offers her a full ride scholarship to Yale. And she's quite confused at first. She has no idea what's really going on. Her entire life is really a mess. She was involved in drugs and alcohol and all those kind of things. Like, she was kind of at the lowest point of her life, so she doesn't really understand what's going on. But she's like, screw it, I'm gonna take this opportunity. And she finds out that she has been tasked with being part of this group of people who help monitor the secret societies at Yale University. And each of these societies kind of deals with the occult and kind of with paranormal activities. And Alex kind of has an in here because she has a link to the occult, to the paranormal world that no one else knows about. And so it's her being stuck monitoring these universities and kind of realizing that there's this forbidden magic that everyone is trying to tamper with, and kind of the sinister underbelly of these secret societies at this highbrow school. And she has this mentor named Darlington, and it's also their relationship and what's going on there, and how she's kind of trying to uncover all these things going on and people trying to stop her from uncovering all these different things. And it's just really awesome. It is adult. Please know that going into it, it is adult. It deals with a lot of difficult topics. It is also just very gory and gruesome and violent at times. But that's what I loved so much about it. I really connected to this book. I had such an amazing time with it, and it is my ultimate dark academia to the max. And then lastly, I'm going to recommend Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. This is one of my favorite book series of all time. The Stalking Jack the Ripper quartet is phenomenal. This is my favorite couple of all time after Percabeth is within this quartet, because it's a romance that spans over the 4 books, and it is so beautiful. This is set in London, 1888. You're following Audrey Rose Wadsworth. She works as an apprentice. Now, Audrey is supposed to be a proper lady during this time. She comes from a very affluent family, but she secretly is an apprentice for her uncle, who is a mortician, who does postmortems and works for the police department in that way. So I forget his actual title. I can never fully remember it. This happens every single time. But what ends up happening is that her uncle ends up taking on another apprentice, and that is Thomas Cresswell. And he is kind of this know-it-all, really smart person. He notices the most minute details, and he kind of is always one-upping Audrey. And so she's kind of a bit annoyed with him in the beginning because of that. And then what ends up happening is that Jack the Ripper, he starts killing in London. The bodies start turning up on her uncle's table, and then her uncle is actually taken in as a suspect for being Jack the Ripper. And so it's her trying to clear her uncle's name and trying to solve this mystery with the help of Thomas Cresswell. And I freaking love it. This is one of the first books I read just before joining BookTube back in 2018. It has been a favorite of mine ever since then. It is a book that has shaped me as a person, and I always want to recommend it. So definitely check this one out. It is freaking phenomenal. 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, those are going to be my books with kind of autumn fall vibes. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Please let me know down below what some of your favorites are. There are definitely so many books that I say would give you autumn fall vibes. I just haven't read them, so I couldn't recommend them. I can only recommend you guys the books that I do read, and it turns out I don't really read too many books that have autumn fall vibes with them. But yeah, that's gonna be it. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel. And until next time, thanks a bunch everyone. Bye bye.